It's about remembering what we forgot. And the teachings are crystal clear in this regard that we're not a body, we have a body. And C.S. Lewis quoted this also, coming from Vedic teachings. We are spirit that has a body, not body that has a soul. We are a spiritual being. And for a moment in time, I get born into this Italian American New York body. That's not me. That is a Hertz rent a body. That's like a rented vehicle that I have for a few years. And out of illusion, out of attachment, I think the body is me.
I'm pleased to have Raghunath Cappo with us today, who has had some amazing spiritual transformations. Raghunath started his life in a band and completely changed his life trajectory once these spiritually transformative experiences happened, and is now on a spiritual path dedicated to helping others. Thank you so much for joining us, Raghunath. I'm very pleased to have you with us today.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Yeah, it's quite a story, a very peculiar story from the punks of the Lower East Side in the early 80s in New York, which was a whole scene in itself. Like New York in the 80s was the birth of hip hop culture, um, uh, graffiti, breakdancing, hardcore music, goth. Everything took place on the Lower East Side. It's where every freak came to get together and express their identity. And it sort of worked. We melded together as connected by our unacceptedness by I'd say corporate rock, arena rock, and I was in a straight edge band. And even though the punk scene, when people think, "Oh, you were a punk," man, those guys were. We were clean living punks. We didn't drink, we didn't smoke. We were into positive living, animal rights, and which is sort of common nowadays. I mean, you can get a vegan option at Burger King, but back in the '80s, it was a very weird thing. So, we had a strange band that was sort of loud and noisy and unwelcome in commercial music, but it was within this punk scene. But we had a bubble within that punk scene of clean living, positive thoughts, and no drugs or alcohol when everybody was doing all the drugs of the '80s. So it was a unique story. And then I ended up on the other side of that as you know, a monk, later became an international yoga teacher, etc.
So yeah, that is quite an individual experience or unique experience because yeah, the 80s were kind of like you said that time of
Mm.
drugs and rock and roll and that's what people were doing, especially in bands and that lifestyle. So you were kind of, sounds like you had a gut feeling about how you should live your life from the get-go. And so what happened to change this from moving from the band over to a spiritually led and guided life?
Well, I did have some gut feelings, and I mean, you're a spiritual person, so we understand that either we're inspired by somebody in this life, or it's some type of karma we have from a previous life. We don't accept that people are just born musical, or people are born artistic, or people are born mathematical. That being born, or whether you call it their DNA or how their hardware was programmed, we say it's that life is a continual evolution or de-evolution, and everything is a practice. So if you've been practicing using your musical intelligence, artistic intelligence, communicative intelligence, those things carry with us, as well as negative traits as well. You could be a person filled with resentment and rage and murderous thoughts. Those stay with the subtle body as well. And these are the teachings of the yogis of India. So I got interested in yoga, which was also a very fringe thing in the 80s to get interested into. It was considered, oh, it's a California thing, getting into spirituality and Eastern spirituality and granola. But I was interested in it because I felt like the culture of India was a very broad understanding of spirituality. It wasn't like these Abrahamic traditions, which were very exclusive. Like, you join my way is the only way. where it understands like people are on a spiritual path and that we are also part of God, and you can't, and everybody's part of God, even your enemies are part of God. And so there is no such thing as friend or enemy. And we have to learn that people just get covered by certain types of illusion. And to hate a person, it brings up the hate in yourself, and you're not getting closer to God. And so I was attracted to that type of spiritual path. And so that's why I wanted to learn yoga, not for the handstands that, my yoga students, want come to learn at first. I wanted to understand the spiritual underpinnings of the yoga system, and how I can evolve. And the more I got into it, the more I realized, oh, I get it. This physical stuff is secondary to the internal stuff. The internal stuff is the real work we have to work on, which is, can I start to let my mind work for me instead of my mind work against me? And I think it's safe to say we've all suffered days or weeks or seasons of life where our mind has become our biggest enemy instead of our greatest friend. We definitively have a mental health crisis in our nation, to say the least. And so there's certain things that we can do to help correct it. And I've found that the yoga system has been a massive benefit, from directing the food choices I eat, the thoughts I think, the resentment I must release, the breathing that I do, the physical aerobic exercises that we do, as well as just, you know, mental hygiene of rising early and bathing early, cold water, eating at regular times. This is also These are things our culture, eating fresh foods. So it's one of these things that our culture has forgotten about. Yeah, I grew up in the '70s, so everything was canned and frozen and prepackaged and microwaved, or TV dinners, and we're slowly undoing what we thought was, well, this is convenience, this is great, and we've realized we created compounded problems in people's physical health and mental health. And I was lucky and fortunate that I got turned on to this stuff at a young age.
I definitely agree with that. I was born and raised in kind of the same time frame, the 80s, but I was born in the 70s. And
Mm.
I remember, all that fast. We didn't necessarily eat a lot of fast food, but it was fast to prepare,
Sure,
easy, quick. Yeah, because that's when, people started having to work, both mom and dad having to work, and they had
sure.
to come home and kind of throw something together for dinner. And we did get away from that. And it's funny how we're coming full circle now and we're getting back to gardens and fresh foods. And so you were on the fringe in this that's not what I think of when I think of a punk rock leader, is someone
Sure.
who's doing yoga and into eating fresh foods.
Sure, it was weird, and definitely got pushback from the community, because no one wants to hear from a 19-year-old kid about, clean living and, eat organic and, control your senses and control your mind and, you know uh, don't don't intoxicate yourself. Who wants to hear that when you're 20 years old? You think, who is this guy? But that's what I was into. That's what I was drawn to, and I knew these were good things, and so I just dug my heels in. And I wasn't expecting it to get as big as it did, but it became an international movement of fans and other bands that propagated this lifestyle of straight edge living, etc. Over time, I felt though that just being clean of drugs and alcohol, etc. Um, there's got to be we got to turn the nut stronger to get to line this up, because I can be clean from what I'm putting in my body, the gross things that can really throw the train off the tracks. But we got to start to clean up the thoughts. We got to start to clean up our thoughts, our speech, our self talk, the way we talk to others. And this is the real work for the spiritualist. First, there's the initial, no, I'm not going to drink this. I'm not going to smoke this. I'm not going to go there. But then there's the harder work, which is that internal mental discipline. And I think this is where we go with all spiritual traditions. We find some values, we find some truths. We find some connection with source. We find ourselves part of something bigger, and how to move forward like that. So, and we lose faith in the material world. I think that's a big catapult for moving forward on your spiritual path. Is you sort of lose faith in the material path, and sometimes there's a lot of hope in the material path. But for great philosophers and thoughtful people, or spiritualists, or even existentialists, they say, big deal. Okay, I went to the Caribbean, big deal. Or I went to the, saw the Eiffel Tower, big deal. And now what? Now what am I supposed to do with my life? Where are we going? Are we just supposed to pop out a few kids, like I was raised, misunderstand them, they misunderstand us, and then we become the old man? Is that where we're going with all this? Or is it just to collect a bunch of stuff? Is it to have a bunch of sexual encounters? Is it to put my foot on every, continent on the globe, or every, to be a world traveler? Is it adventure sports? No. The yogis say there's a God-shaped hole in the heart, and we'll try to shove everything into that hole except God. Nothing quite will fit in that hole. So it's not now become a Hindu. Now drop your religion, come to our religion. It's not about a conversion. Yoga system is not converting people, getting a different change of clothes or a different haircut or different rituals. It's about remembering what we forgot. And the teachings are crystal clear in this regard, that we're not a body, we have a body. And C.S. Lewis quoted this also, coming from Vedic teachings. We are spirit that has a body, not body that has a soul. We are a spiritual being. And for a moment in time, I get born into this Italian American New York body. That's not me. That is a Hertz rent-a-body. That's like a rented vehicle that I have for a few years. And out of illusion, out of attachment, I think the body is me. I think the body is me. I think my ethnicity is me. I think the color of my skin is me. I think my political party is me. I think this house is mine. I think these children are mine. And the fact is, none of it's mine. Everything is on loan to me. Just like you were to rent a car. You have it for a few days. Don't get attached. You have a hotel room for a few days. Don't get, it's not you. This is just a rental. And sometimes the rentals are, incredible. I rented a Mercedes, and sometimes I'm renting a crappy entry level Hyundai. But whatever it is, that's what we got in this lifetime. So how do I see myself as something bigger, as an eternal being? How do I see myself as a spiritual being? And how do I see everybody in this world and every being, not just body, not just like every human being, every living entity as a spiritual entity? How can that resonate with me? How can I fully get that? That when I'm dealing with an animal, they're actually beings. They're beings also. There's the trees, the plants, the earth itself are beings. So this is Vedic thought, that spirit is everywhere. And then there's, of course, Judeo-Christian culture would say the source of spirit, or what we would call in the Western world, God. They would call Bhagavan or Krishna or Ram, like the original source of spirit. And this is what the Vedic teachings teach. And you'll find that it's not, because I've read the Bible, I've read the Quran, I've read the Old Testament, and I've read the Buddhist sutras. It's not like there's pearls of wisdom in these things. It's not like, but I will say the Vedic teachings is not just another pearl, but they tie these pearls together. Like, how are they related? How are they related? And this is a problem I see right now in the world, is instead of finding how things are related, how you and I are related, what is our commonality, we are finding how are we different? And we highlight the differences. And therefore, people that you could actually have in your life as friends, as people, we just concentrate on our differences. And that's not going to work in a friendship. It's not going to work in a family. It's not going to work in a town, a city, between political parties and internationally. Not at all. You want to squash this tension of hate, you got to start finding out what you have in common. And So the Vedic teachings I study, or these teachings of the ancient yoga system, this isn't some sort of fun fascination or trend. These are eternal truths on how to make the world a better place, and how do you see yourself as an eternal being traveling through this body. It really is the panacea of the world problems I see. And that's why real transformation and real change, I embraced this as a young man, and I still follow it today.
So tell me about us being these eternal spiritual beings, because that's kind of what I created this podcast for, was
Mm,
to help people to understand that they are an eternal spiritual being so that they can live better lives with less fear, fear of death, fear of losing
sure.
someone, or fear of pain and suffering. Those pain and sufferings may come, but they're temporary. So tell me about this eternal spiritual being that we are. Where do we go? Where do we come from? What
Sure.
is this?
What is this? This is it's sort of a drama, so we can act out and play God, even though that's not our real position. So we can live within this ego world where I think I'm the center of everything. And I try to rally people to endorse that theory. And if they do endorse the theory that I'm the center, I call them a friend. And if they're going against that theory that I'm very, very important, I call them my enemies. And this is what we're dealing with in the material world. And you nailed it on the head. We are eternal beings, and we play roles. Shakespeare said the same thing. We're all players on a stage, all right, and we're all playing a certain role. And to the degree that I really identify myself as the center, and as we come off almost pretentious, like we're pretending to be something that we're not. And there is, for thoughtful people, there's this idea of being a genuine person, a sincere person, an authentic person. And if you're attracted to that, then you're a spiritualist, and you're trying to realize that I'm actually a vulnerable person. I was fronting that I'm very strong and very powerful, but I realize I'm like an egg that can crack at any moment in a number of horrible ways. This body that I've been bench pressing and developing an 8 pack of abs and strength, it's all actually one little bug can enter my body and kill me in a moment. There is no real strength and permanence in the body. Don't think this is your home. We're living in a sandcastle. Things get taken away. This isn't a spiritual guy digging his head in the sand because everything is nothing. This real spirituality is understanding, no, this world is temporary. There are spiritual truths I want to embrace. Fear is something created in the mind because we don't fully understand that we're not bodies. Fear is fear. It comes from me thinking that I am a body, and then I actually have something to lose. And actually, this is the panacea to the world problems because we understand that we're all eternal beings, and we're all part of something divine. And therefore, there is no such thing as enemies. And we learn to feel compassion. We learn to feel empathy. These are the things we concentrate on. And uh, yeah, there's different practices we can do: meditational practice, dietary choices, wisdom literature that we can imbibe to help us see this vision 24/7, and not just be sort of an armchair philosopher. Real, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah, I'm a spirit that has a body, but actually a practical way to apply it and to live it. That's what I want.
So you talked about dietary choices, I suppose, to
Sure.
help us on those journeys so that we can better understand who we truly are. What do you recommend?
It's not that I recommend it, but the Vedic culture of ancient India recommend this. And that is to see that just to survive, we're going to have to kill. And so we try to minimize our footprint on the planet as much as possible. So we work towards minimizing pain. And so it's recommended you eat leaves, fruits, flowers, which basically means a lacto vegetarian diet, or a vegan diet. Um, And of course, people can say, well, you're still killing plants. Yeah, you are. Just because to subsist, you have to, but it's a less developed uh, physical form. It's give a child a knife and tell slit the neck of a pig or pick some berries. I'm most definitely the child, if not prompted, will pick the berries because it's a way to live in this world where we're causing the minimal pain as possible. Now, of course, you're not killing the berries when you eat the berries. Oftentimes, you don't have to kill when you, like, for example, I have a garden in my backyard. Every time I eat romaine lettuce, I cut off the leaves and I replant the roots. And there now I have a whole nother thing of romaine lettuce. So oftentimes you don't even have to kill to survive. But killing is always going to be there. That's part of having a body. But we say minimize it. Why? Is it for health reasons? Health will come natural when we follow these universal truths, minimizing pain. But we don't also get lost in this idea of what do they call it? Uh, they call it I can't remember. The idea of, like, we can live forever. No, the body can't live forever. Sometimes the body gets diseased. Sometimes we do everything right with our body, but we get sick. That's just every body, once you get it, has some karma. But we can make the body as healthy as we possibly can. But deeply, we understand we're not a body and we're going to have to lose the body. And to the degree that I'm very attached to the body as my identity, then we suffer even more. So while we're going on with our life, we're always cultivating wisdom, which means I don't own anything. I don't own my house. I don't own my family. I don't own my teenagers. I don't own my little kids. I don't own my spouse. I don't own my property. My net worth, I don't own that anyway. That's not my net worth. That's just my net stuff of this world. And my real net worth is, for these few days that I'm on this planet, can I contribute? Can I give some love to the people that come into my life? Can I assist them on their growth? And that's how we look at life. That life is temporary, and we're not born just to collect stuff. We're actually born to give some love, and that's why in bhakti yoga, it's a yoga or a connection to divinity through loving service.
I love that because so many near death experiencers talk about how they come back with the message that love is the only thing there truly is.
Mm,
Love is the most important thing. We were created in love. Everything is love. So when you say that, a lot of them come back with a service mentality that they feel like they were given a mission, and it always includes some service to humanity.
mm.
So when you talk about love and loving service, what are you talking about? People question what they should do. You can do one thing. For example, a near death experiencer, she was a vegetarian. In her near death experience, she learned she wasn't given the karma points for being a vegetarian because of
Ah, interesting.
the reasons why she was a
Her
vegetarian.
intention
So
behind it might have been
the
like, yeah, I
intention,
want to lose
exactly.
weight, or I want to be healthy for, to support my ego.
Exactly. So what are some kind of tips that you can give people to give back in service with the right intentions? What can they look for?
Sure. I mean, we all have some calling. We are all crafted. There's a recipe that made you and me, and we all have some God-given gifts, as my mom would call them. What are we doing with those gifts? Are we using them to endorse our ego? When I say the ego, what we were saying earlier, how, like, look, I'm so talented, or look, I'm so musical, or look, I'm so, bright or charming. So you worship me as the center, and you use all of my gifts to manipulate people into worshiping me? Or do I say, you know what? Everything I have is a gift, and I have it so I can give back. And so we all have some type of talent. And later, when I quit my band and, went to India, became a monk, went back to ashrams in America, I thought, well, what is my gift? And I thought, well, I already had a gift. I had thousands of fans that were doing music. But I thought, well, the music scene. It was complicated. It was competitive. I was a little arrogant. Okay, how can I do this in a more spiritual way? What what I found was really peculiar was I found that I started another band very similar to the first one, sort of like a punk band, but we were all monks at the time. There were other guys like me that are Americans that were interested in this philosophy. So we said, you know what? Let's just do this for Krishna. Let's do this for God. And it took away all the pain I found in the music scene, which was competition, ego, backbiting, betrayal, arrogance. It was like a whole different world. And I could do this almost as a spiritual offering because I felt like, wait a second, I'm good at what I do. Even back then I had a positive message, but this is now a spiritual message. Can I use this music as a vehicle to uplift people, to help other people get connected, to give people some solace in hard times? And that became my focus. And I did it more not to serve God rather than to be God. And I think that's an important question that I still ask myself on a regular basis. And that could be not just with what your job is, but how am I treating my kids? How am I treating my family members? How am I treating my friends? What am I why am I taking care of myself? Why am I going to the gym? Why do I work out? Why do I eat healthy? Am I doing why do I eat unhealthy? Am I doing it to be God, the center, the enjoyer, the controller? Or am I doing it to serve God? Now, if you take care of your body, that was a very insightful thing you said earlier about this person didn't get the quote karma points because they did it for the wrong intention. Taking care of your body can be a spiritual offering. Why? Because our body's a gift and we want to give back with that body. It can also be a massive manifestation of your ego because now I'm ripped and now I'm strong and I want you to worship me and I want to consume you. You know, we just throw this word love around so cheap in our culture. I love her. Well, love her means you want to serve her. It doesn't mean you want to just consume her and you think she's hot. That's not love. That's lust. There's a difference. That's like iron and gold. You can't compare the two. Love is much different than lust. So let's like strip this down and see like why am I working out? Is it just so I develop my lust and I want people to lust after me? And or am I doing this because this body is a gift and I want to use this in this short life? I wanted to give back. And I don't want to disgrace, so to speak, or diss God by not taking care of this body because we should take care of the body. Um, so it's a more what I feel is a more balanced approach to health and wellness, not just that I'm ripped or or sexy, but the fact that that my fitness is one thin slice of my health regime. Because if I'm ripped and sexy and hot, but I'm angry or I can't forgive people, how healthy am I? How healthy if I harbor resentment or if um, I can't work out a problem with someone or I'm raging on someone? Like, how healthy am I? So that's part of our health too. Matter of fact, the external shell, like I mean, the guy's driving a Ferrari, but if he himself has like a chronic disease, who cares? If he's driving a Ferrari, the ride is temporary. In the same sense, in my heart, if I'm not using my subtle body, my mind, my intelligence, my ego in a way that's going to serve me and my culture, then what good is a fit body? So there's a much broader picture. It's a bigger pie than just this thin slice of fitness. And I think the world's starting to see that, don't you?
I think so. I think the world is changing. I like the way that you explain that because to me, it almost sounds like, working out, taking care of your body is like a facet of the complete package of gratitude for your
Sure.
experience here, for this vehicle. Just like you would take care of your vehicle, you would change the oil, make sure you have gas.
Yep.
You got to get tune-ups and things like that. Tires rotated. It's the same thing with your body. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere, right? So the way that you explained it is, to me, it sounded like it's showing gratitude to God, to the universe, to our higher self, whatever label you want to put on it, for this experience, for being able to have this interaction with others and with the
Sure.
world and our landscape. And you have kind of always been like you talked about, you had the gut feelings and you were eating differently and you were in this punk band. But what was the moment when you thought, I can't do this any longer. I need to
Mm.
become a monk. Was there a pivotal moment that you can remember?
If I look back on it, Tia, it was a building, like an eruption. Um, it wasn't one particular thing, but there's definitely, you know, was it this last straw that broke the camel's back, or was it all the straws that went before it? So it was a building that went on with with becoming successful as a musician, getting that validation from fans. And by the way, whenever you get any type of material validation, material wealth, material success, material accolades, it's never just like you're drinking it's not like you're drinking like fresh squeezed watermelon juice. It's like drinking fresh squeezed watermelon juice with little shards of glass in it, right? Anybody who's experienced any type of good fortune in this world, they know it's not pure good fortune. There's always some like sand in your beverage. In India, they call it sand in the sweet rice, meaning sweet rice is like a pudding. It's like a natural. But imagine if someone was to spill some sand. It's hard to enjoy the sweet rice if there's sand in it. So in the same sense, material good fortune is met with a whole bunch, for everybody that likes you, there's a handful of people that hate your guts for no good reason. There's people that want to take you down. You develop enemies. Um, Whenever you have, there's always a bigger anxiety of fearing you will lose. That's the downside of being the haves, right? If you live in a very beautiful house, then there's perhaps more of a desire for people to want to break into your house and rob you from your. So it's not like everybody gets a pass once they become famous, financially, stable, get tons of accolades from the press, whatever it is. So my success in my band just made me just realize, like, who cares about success? A bunch of people think I'm cool now, and a bunch of people hate my guts. You know, this is more it was more painful than it was much more painful than before we had fans. There were a lot of perks to it. I could travel around the world. I had fans that would sing my songs wherever I went. I felt like we were doing something good, but it was mixed. I became more competitive. I became more angry at times. I'd lose my cool. I was self conscious all the time. I couldn't trust. I had people betray me. And so then at the same time, my father started getting ill. And I tell the whole story in brief in my book, Punk to Monk, that just came out. Um, but it was my father fell into a coma for 3 years as my band started. So in those 3 years, and the band's climbing our international success and our fans, I just got more and more. I lost more faith in the material world because the success seemed like not all it's cracked up to be. And then here's my father, who's a good man, a responsible father. He just got almost like picked off by a sniper, so to speak. He didn't get picked off by a sniper. He had some disease at a reasonably young age, not much more, not much older than I am now. But I felt like death is killing everybody. And death is like a sniper, and death takes people out randomly. It's not like death is only going to kill the bad people. No, death is going to kill everybody. And death is going to kill a little kid, a child, an innocent kid. And so I started realizing what faith I didn't just see his death. I saw my own death. I was like, I get it. I'm going to be up there one of these days. One day I'm going to get dealt the ace of spades. And I started realizing, like, what am I here to do in this world? What is the point of life? And I was saying to you earlier, is it just adventure? Is it family? Is it to eat well? Is it to laugh more? Is it to gain a lot of stuff? So we die with a lot of stuff. and have our kids fight over it. And I just thought, no, there's got to be something higher. And that was driving me to spiritual solutions for my material problems. And that's what made me take interest in all spiritual books from all different traditions. And then that was this sort of the catapult. When he finally left his body, I thought, you know what? Now I'm leaving this band. And that was sort of the impetus, I think. And when I first started to live with the monks, I just started to realize these guys don't have any motive. They don't want anything from me. The material world is filled with people. They want something from me. If I was famous, they want to be my hanger on, and so they can say, "Yeah, I'm his friend." Or if I had some money, they tell, "Oh, I want some of his money." Or not that I have that much money, but at the same time, I felt like these guys don't want anything from me. They have nothing, and they're happy. What a great skill set. What I would love to learn how to be happy with nothing. The whole world that I come from is running around trying to get stuff to be happy. These guys have nothing. They're in very renounced situations, yet they have an internal um, calmness and a joy. How do you do that? How do you find happiness in a temporary world? How do you find stability in a temporary world? And how do you find joy in a world where everyone you love you're going to lose? And these became my objects of meditation when I was 22 years old. um, and that really sort of catapulted me further and deeper onto my path.
I want to go deeper into that too, because that you're right. How do you find happiness with nothing? You have nothing because that's not the society that we were raised in. That's not what society says. It's a consumerist, we see commercials on TV to buy things and constantly being told that we need more, 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 more. And so we buy bigger and bigger houses to store all these more and more things that we have to have.
It's really a sick cycle, isn't it?
It really is. So, how do we become happy with, I don't even want to say that we all have to have nothing, but with less, with what we're provided.
Sure. Yeah, that's one way. I mean, you nailed it. Is how can I be simple without being simple minded? You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
we want to be thoughtful. We want to be introspective. We want to be deep. We want to imbibe wisdom on a regular basis. But we want to understand that there's nothing in this world that will actually make me complete. There's no thing. The only what I need is spiritual connection. So spiritual teachers all have their deep meditational practices. My tradition does as well. We do it through mantra and meditation. We do it through regulating our senses instead of just indulging the senses. I mean, that's like common wisdom, but it's forgotten. We get the idea. Well, just indulge and indulge. Indulgence will be great. And the problem with you is you're not indulging enough, and you've just got to let go of all this, Catholic guilt that you were born in, and you just got to let your senses go. No, that's a stupid idea. I mean, talk to anybody in a 12-step recovery program and ask them what it's like for their to indulge all their desires. That's what got them there in the first place, indulging their desires. No, you got to regulate your senses. You got to control your senses. And if you don't, your senses start to control you. And then you lose yourself and you lose your mind. And, and Buddhism teaches this very well too. It's like our pain in this world comes because we have unlimited senses. And then the Bhagavatam, other teachings from ancient India say, for one whose senses are out of control, there is nothing in this world that'll ever satiate them. The only way you'll be satiated is if your senses are calm and harnessed. It's like simple math that we've forgotten. And it's not for a Hindu, and it's not for a Jew, and it's not for a Christian. These are eternal truths for all people. No one religion has a monopoly on God or truth or reality. But we have to embrace these teachings and put them to practice in your life so they assist us to evolve. If you're not evolving, and if what you're doing for a noble purpose is making you hate another religion, you're doing something wrong.
Can we just meditate our way there? Is that the key?
Yeah, but sometimes meditation can be action, you know? For example, here's a simple way, if I'm washing my mother's car, that's the type of meditation. I want to serve her with love, but it's an action also. So this idea of bhakti or devotional service, which our guru Prabhupada says, um, or our teacher, guru, sometimes people freak out by that word, but guru means a teacher. But in this case, a spiritual teacher, he said, it's love is an action. Love is devotional service. So you can you can take pretty much anything that you can do and engage it in the service of spirit and of divinity. And yeah, and your meditation can be like that, but also the way you cook dinner for your kids. When I cook dinner for my kids, I do it in a mood of devotional service. I'm cooking the food and preparing the food, appreciating the food, sometimes growing the food, and then offering before I even eat it or taste it or give it to my kids, I offer it back to God. In the East, we call God Krishna. It means the very beautiful one, the most beautiful one. But when we say God, it's like ever, just like my kids call me Dad. My mom calls me Ray. My name's Ray. Ray or Ray. And then my Eastern name is Raghunath, but I'm the same guy. Whether it's Dad, Ray, or Raghunath, it's the same person. So in different cultures, we call higher power different names. Sometimes we'll say the universe. Sometimes we'll say God. Sometimes we'll say Jehovah. Sometimes we'll say Krishna. They're just different names of the same being. Again, to quote Shakespeare, a rose is a rose by any other name, right? If I call a rose a tractor, it's still a rose. Whatever name I give it, we're talking about the same thing. So no one's got a monopoly. God's not for one culture or one race. God's for everyone. And truth is for everyone. And it's like math. It's not like there's Hindu math and Christian math and Jewish math. Math is math. 2 + 2 is 4. That truth you can take away and put in your pocket and use it. Whatever sort of like resonates with you, but you got to make sure you're not cultivating hate for those who are different than you, or else you're barking up the wrong tree.
So it's almost like we're living, or to live in gratitude is a key to becoming happy with
Mm-hmm.
less.
Well, even if you have more, even if people have more, if you use what you have in a divine way, then it becomes useful. If it's not like we hate money. If I have money, I want to do a good thing with it. People do great things with money. You could also use money for horrible things, right? You could use money to liberate yourself. You could help so many people with money. We shouldn't despise the thing. We should despise how or appreciate how things are utilized. Does that make sense?
It does make
And
sense.
in our heart of hearts, we are simple because we understand, or we're training ourselves to understand, that I don't own anything anyway. In the Vedic teachings of ancient India, sometimes you'll hear people praised who are complete renunciates, who have nothing. They're like hermits. But sometimes you'll hear people praised who are great kings. Now we think, well, how could a king be spiritual? All the kings I've ever heard, Louis the 14th or Ivan the Terrible, or these guys are horrible, despots. No, India has these stories of these saintly kings who are very, very spiritually connected. But what made them spiritual was they just go about their days like they're doing their duties, but ultimately they're detached from everything that they have. They understand, I'm just doing a duty. This country needs a leader. I will protect them. I will nurture them. I'll care for them. Right? We shouldn't hate all people who are leaders. We should just the leaders just have to learn skills and values. That's what we need. We need leaders with values, huh?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Do you think that kind of this need for greed, the more and more things and the bigger and bigger houses, do you think it kind of stems from dissatisfaction with our own self?
For sure. It also comes from an idea that there is something that'll make me whole.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're dissatisfied with ourselves, so we try to, or it comes from some type of insecurity and not understanding ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we work hard to try to make a lot of money to impress our parents because we feel like my parents never loved me enough, but I'll teach them. I'll teach them I'm lovable. Or maybe we have an older brother, an older sister, so we're toiling difficult in this world to try to impress our brother and our sister, or they never thought a lot about me, but I'll show them. So a good question to ask is, why are you working so hard? What's your win? Where are you going with all this? Where are you going with wealth accumulation? Is it security? Are you really that secure? The answer is, we're not secure.
Yeah.
Once you have a material body, we are insecure beings. We take at any minute. We could some, it could be dismantled in a number of horrible ways, but we can be secure in a spiritual way. Why? Because I feel like my work in this world is connected for the betterment of myself and the world at large. That gives us a lot of joy, and I think any type of life coach will tell you that we got to find our purpose, and generally it comes from what you said, our gratitude. And our gratitude means I think deeply and realize anything I have is by the mercy of other people. I've been taken care of, I've been loved, and yeah, I've worked for it as well. But even the stuff I've worked for, oftentimes I've been taught how to work. I've by there might be a teacher, an author, a mentor, or a guru, or an artisan that taught me something. So if we really meditate on our life, we realize so many people have given me and nurtured me and taught me and inspired me. And because of that, I'm grateful. And very interesting thing and very simple math is, when I'm grateful, I'm happy. When I'm entitled, I suffer. That is just the simple math of human existence.
It makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, I have a website, Raghunath, Raghunath .yoga, Raghunath.yoga. I take people on holy pilgrimages to India, and where I tell them about holy places, and we have, just like we're having today, a spiritual discourse. We do that morning and evening. We go to holy places in India. That's a very special trip. It's People just say it's life changing, and for me, every time I do it, I find it life changing. This year, I'm taking a group to Nepal where we trek. It's also a very breathtaking trip through the Himalayas, but it's not like we're climbing ice mountains. It's very safe, and it's a workout, but it's safe and gorgeous, and it's also a beautiful spiritual trip. I also have a farm in upstate New York where we do retreats and we teach people bhakti yoga, which is a meditation of singing, of call and response chanting, as well as physical yoga. And yeah, you can follow me on Instagram as well, which is Raghunath, Raghunath Yogi. These are the best ways to reach out.
Do you have any last positive messages for the audience?
Thank you. Every day we do a daily yoga podcast or spiritual podcast. I say yoga, but it's really yoga philosophy. It's called Wisdom of the Sages, and you can hear it wherever you get podcasts or YouTube. We've had about 1,300 episodes. We've been going since January 1st, 2020. Um, and I think that would be a great thing to check out. Check out my new book, Punk to Monk. It just came out, and it's doing great. It tells my story, but I didn't write it so you guys can just become me at all. But it talks about my spiritual evolution, and the feedback I'm getting from a lot of people is like, wow, I live a totally different. I didn't know anything about punk. I didn't know anything about you know teachings of the East, but I'm finding my own journey in your journey. And that's what I was hoping to accomplish with this story, as different as we are. And we're all very different. We have a lot of similarities. We all fall in love. We all get our hearts broken. We all get some money. We lose some money. We get a lot of money. We lose a lot of money. There's life in our coming into our life, and there's death going into our life. We get sick. We get well. We become strong. We become weak. We lose loved ones. We gain loved ones. We're very, very similar, and that's why real wisdom literature. It connects us all through these very similar life changes, life deficits, and life assets. And so, yeah, check out the book, Punk to Monk. Get it on Amazon or anywhere that you get books. It's out there right now.
I'm going to check it out myself.
Tia, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this very much. And thank you for sharing all of your, well, thank you for your service to humanity. It's really important to me and to others. I know you're helping a lot of people, so thank you.
We have a big community. You are too. And I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep
And
doing what you're doing.
you do the same. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.